why we do the podcast is because we want it to be a daily discipleship tool that goes alongside people's spiritual growth.
The three pillars to our podcast are authenticity, community, and value, right? So we want to be authentic, we want to develop a community, and we want to add value to your life.
It's like it's fun in games, you know, but I think there's a level, you know, there's like you cross the line sometimes where it's just like you're now enabling people's heart motive to be searching for someone, when in the end, if that's a byproduct of going to church and spending time in community, that's great. But if it's not your original intention to like be with God in his community for the sole purpose of your relationship with him and growth and, you know, becoming more Christ-like, then I think we've missed the point.
Desire to be genuine and who they really are, and even the openness to other people of different faiths, of different perspectives, of different traditions, of different backgrounds, all those kind of things. I think that will result in a very beautiful community.
All right. Hey, welcome to the podcast. It is Josiah, Zach, Lauren, and Abel. And we have a super special episode for you today because today marks our 1-year anniversary of starting the podcast.
1
Wow.
year in the books.
Approximately.
365
Does
days.
it feel, does it feel longer or shorter than 1 year?
Longer?
Really? She's like, these episodes just get really.
Right at a year for me. Like
Okay.
this feels like it's been a
Feels
year.
appropriate. Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's been too fast or too long.
I'm a bit surprised that it's been a year, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
But it's been amazing. I hope it's been a blessing to you, the listener who's been joining us for the journey. Today, we thought we'd do a little bit of a different episode than instead of just focusing on one topic, we thought each of us would get 5 questions, a little bit of different areas. Lauren's are going to be get to know you. Abel's are going to be podcast related. Zach are more church trend related. And then they've given me the hot take questions. So tune in to the end for that. So I'm going to hand it off to Lauren. Lauren's kicking us off. We got some good questions here. Lauren, throw us the first
All
one.
right. Like the most reoccurring dream.
Okay. So I was going back and forth between 2 dreams, but I think I can share this one on public air. So I'm sure this is, I know I'm not the one who's had this dream. So there's these dreams that I've had where I'm swimming, right, having a great time.
Oh, no.
You guys already know where this is going because you've had this dream before.
Never.
I don't believe you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know you do. And all of a sudden, I have no pants. I have no.
Oh,
swimming
wow.
shorts.
Okay, that's not what I was expecting.
That's not where you guys' dream went.
Starting the podcast off
yeah.
hot.
I was just like, what happened? And I'm like freaking out because I'm in the public pool and
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I had these dreams a lot when I was like younger, like
Yeah.
kid, middle school. I'm just like this
Wow.
huge weight of embarrassment falls. Like I can feel the embarrassment as I'm sleeping. And
Aw.
and then I wake up and I was thinking
If you
through
go
that
to an
question.
ocean, that will definitely happen.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. It's very easy with the waves. But no, this is a public pool. There's no waves. Just swimming. All of a sudden, shorts are gone, and I'm freaking out as a kid. So
That's so sad.
yeah.
That's some Buster Keaton.
My
Yeah.
recurring dream as a kid was we were in our old house and us kids had a bunk bed and a twin bed.
Hmm.
And I dreamt over and over that pirates were invading our
Oh.
neighborhood. Okay. And I was like terrified. And so dad, he was going to go fight off the pirates. And he takes us to the room. He said, okay, you're going to go to sleep now. And we're like, why? Well, okay. And so he like puts us down, you know, tucks us in. And I'm just like so scared. And then he closes the door and I turn over towards the wall and a pirate goes, boo. And I wake up. And that was my reoccurring dream
Like
as
a
a
chill
kid.
boo like that?
Like scary, like
Oh, like
ugly
scary
pirate.
boo, okay.
Like, yeah, it was, yeah. As a
Huh.
kid, that was really scary.
Huh.
I
Wow.
should imagine, yeah.
Interesting.
I have too many strange dreams to count, but one like recurring strange dream, which is actually one of my favorite dreams ever, is some people dream that they fly.
Mhm.
My wife and my mother-in-law both dream when they fly that they're like doing breaststroke, like they're swimming through the air. Interesting
Mm.
stuff. But I have these recurring dreams where I'm Spider-Man. I'm just straight up
I
Spider-Man.
love that. I
And,
love
and
that.
so
Spider-Man.
instead of flying through the air, I'm like web slinging through buildings, and it's the coolest thing like ever. And
Mm.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So fun. And there have been dreams that have like expanded into stories. If we had more time, I would tell you about one. But
Anybody have a feeling
There's
like
like a
Zach wants a
storyline.
podcast that just talks about his dreams or dream?
I would listen to that.
Dream, yeah.
let me
I
tell
would.
you, maybe that's our next podcast.
Dream number one.
We could do a spinoff.
And then when you try to interpret the dream on the back end,
Yeah, or like the crime shows where
I
it's like
think-
they try and reenact it.
If you could preload dreams, I think you would probably preload that dream.
That'd be a good
Yeah,
time.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
If that's the only dream I ever had, is me just slinging through buildings. Yep, for sure.
strangest or reoccurring dream that I have this dream every once in a while that I'm back in school, like kind of in high school, and I'm basically like failing, or I didn't get an assignment done, or I just can't like get a test done. And it feels so real, and I'm so frustrated in the dream, and I'm so relieved when I wake up. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
That's my dream.
Dang.
Good.
Crazy.
All right, number 2. Do you have any phobias? Now they don't have to be diagnosed, but just like phobias in general.
I have a fear of heights, but it's an interesting one. Like I can be
That's what all people who have afraid of heights.
Yeah,
say.
like, but I could be on the edge of a cliff and be pretty comfortable on the edge of a cliff, like looking down. But if you put me on the side of the cliff and I'm holding on, I'm absolutely terrified.
Interesting.
Because if I'm on top, I don't feel like I'm gonna fall. Where if I'm on the side, it's like you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
Like you're
holding
rock
on.
climbing,
Like rock
you mean?
climbing is I'm a good rock climber up to a
Okay.
really certain point. Things get
3
real
feet off the
hard
ground.
after a
After
certain
5.
level. It's like I don't know. I think I'll go down. This was fun.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd
That's
have to
good.
agree with the heights one, but also, what are those called? Centipedes. The ones with the super long legs and the long antennas, and they're just so fast and gross.
Like
and
the house centipedes you're
squiggly.
talking about?
Yeah,
ones in
like the basement
houses?
ones, except I live on the
Yeah.
4th floor of a condo building, and they are there.
Yeah,
I
there's-
found one on my doorpost the other
There was
day.
one in my shower the other day.
What?
It was huge too. If you don't know what we're talking
Mm-mm.
about, just Google house centipede. It's terrifying. They look like aliens. They're actually very good for your house because their pincers can't like puncture human skin, but they eat like spiders and mosquitoes and
gosh.
like all these pests that you don't want.
See?
Wait, okay.
The hard thing
I
is they
just-
look like the devil. So
Yeah. it's true.
Okay, last summer, this is where I probably shouldn't have killed all those centipedes. Last summer, I come home and I had left my bedroom window open. Now I have a screen. I don't know how this happened, but I had a screen and it wasn't like an open bare window.
Mhm.
And so I come home, it's like 6:30 p.m. Walk into my room and I go to close the window and the curtains and I see a little spider, like a little tiny baby spider on the ceiling. And I'm like, ew. So I get my stool, I go up and I squish it and I look over and there's like 5 more. And I'm like, oh, boom, 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 like trying to squish them. And I keep looking and they're just everywhere. Like everywhere you could find spiders. It was horrible. And so I spent like 30 minutes killing all of these spiders. I go to the bathroom. I'm like, where's the mom?
Mhm.
Like, where's the mom who did this to me?
Who did
And so I go to the bathroom, I clean up, I am like throwing away all my little things that I use to kill the spiders. And I come out of the bathroom, and there on my curtain is a big, old, like juicy looking spider.
Wow.
And I was like, you decided to show up. And I went over and I just killed it.
killed the house.
That story
centipedes.
almost sounds like a
Murder.
dream
Yeah,
Right?
I really wish it was a dream.
or a nightmare.
This,
Yeah.
So
you
I don't
just
open
gotta
my
make an-
window anymore.
You just need to make an agreement, an alliance with the house centipedes. Just respect them. Say you got your space, I got my
I got my
space,
space.
and then they'll handle the
Yeah,
work.
blood
Yeah,
covenant.
yeah, real life
Yeah.
phobia.
I don't,
Anyway,
yeah, I don't know of any phobias other than maybe like a heights one, but I don't know if it's like a phobia. Like my hands get sweaty when I'm on top of something high, like tall.
climb a tree. or
Typical with a
something.
phobia.
Yeah, is it?
I don't know.
That's a fear response.
My hands get real sweaty, but I'm not like afraid.
I start sweating, my hands get really sweaty, and I start
trembling
shaking.
from head to
My
toe.
anxiety goes up a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's a phobia.
Uh-huh.
Okay, okay.
Maybe heights a little bit. Yeah, maybe heights a little bit. But I won't stop from going up somewhere high. Like I'll still do it. Roller
That's fair,
coasters,
that's fair.
hiking, whatever.
Yeah, I'm secret. I love animals, but I'm secretly afraid of like big dogs. I get really nervous around them. I'm just like, this
True.
is an animal. What
Okay.
if it just decided to turn in a moment? Like,
Yeah.
They do.
that could be really bad.
Yeah.
So, but I love
Yep.
animals.
Cool.
Any phobias? Just oh, you said heights. Never mind.
Yeah, respect to
All
the
right.
animal community.
Number 3. What's your favorite app on your phone and why?
I don't even.
Yeah.
My favorite app.
You know what's funny? What app comes to my mind? This is not my favorite app, but my mind goes like Gmail. Like
It helps me organize my
It
life.
helps
Mine
you, like,
immediately
answer-
went to Maps.
I don't know
so-
why it's like
Maps.
Gmail. Yeah,
Maps,
that's,
yeah.
Connects me
that's
to
not
the
my
world.
favorite app. I don't. It's the app maybe I use the most, but
Yep.
All right, my favorite app. I'll do two favorite apps because they're similar. One is Letterboxd. The other is Goodreads. Letterboxd is a movie app. It's like a social media community app where you log your movies that you watch. You make lists of movies you want to see or you have seen, kind of like playlists. You can see what your friends are watching and what they're rating. You could leave reviews, all that kind of thing. So I'm always like trying to think of like, I'm always making lists in my notes, like what movies do I want to watch?
Mhm.
This takes care of that. People always ask like, oh, what's a good movie you've seen recently? And my mind goes blank immediately.
Yeah.
But I could go and like look at my diary and see like, oh, I've seen these
That's cool.
movies. It's called a
Movie
diary.
Wow.
And then Goodreads is the same thing, but for books. And
Mm.
so I love that. Discovered a lot of good movies, discovered a lot of good books through seeing what my friends are watching and things
That's
like that.
interesting.
So
Cool.
those are my favorite apps.
I think my favorite is named Fetch. Have you guys heard of it?
no.
Mhm.
It's basically so you scan your receipts when you go to like grocery stores or any store,
Mhm.
and you scan it, you upload the picture, and you get points. And when you reach certain points, you get gift cards. But you get to
Oh,
choose where you get your gift cards.
wow.
It's just because like Target and big corporations want to know like what people are buying. Like, are
Oh.
their displays working? Are they not? So if you upload your receipt, you get free money. So I've gotten like 3 gift cards so far.
Like how much are the gift cards?
Sick.
It depends on how many points, but I've gotten like $30 so far.
Wow, that's great.
Oh, we should get sponsored by these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sponsor
Fetch.
me.
Sponsor. I would say mine right now is
The
my
Planet Fitness app.
No. It's an app called Streaks, which is like a habit tracker. So it's super fun. It just like it looks very like clean, like very fun, colorful.
Whoa.
And then like you can, you hold it down and it
Streaks.
track your habits and stuff. So it's really like it
Huh.
conditions my mind to like to
Yeah,
push
yeah,
the
yeah.
button. So then that's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
habit, and I get
Oh,
super
interesting.
I almost
Yeah.
said my habits app, which is called Habits.
Is yours
Yeah.
Gmail, Josiah?
I mean, I like going on Amazon. I like my.
Amazon,
I
yeah.
would say a nice answer would be I like the Photos app, or I like FaceTime. I like FaceTiming people.
Really?
That's a fun app.
Yeah.
Yeah. We FaceTime my parents all the time with the boys. That's kind of
Oh,
a fun
nice.
app to click on.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
All right, what's your favorite way to relax after a stressful day? In one sentence.
Watch a movie or read a book.
Mm.
Go on a walk. Those are mine.
I like bike
Nice.
rides.
Ah.
Bike rides are when the weather's nice. Obviously, bike rides
Yeah,
are
yeah,
so relaxful. Like they just that or a walk. Mm.
Yeah, a nice long walk and then sitting on my balcony overlooking the other people walking.
A walk on like a warmish, slightly windy day.
Oh, it's
Mm.
perfect.
Mm.
Do a forest preserve or like a river walk.
Yeah, something about the wind just helps me like
Yeah.
process and clear my mind.
Yep.
Crazy.
A relaxing moment is getting some probably ordering food
Mm.
and sitting on the couch and putting on a good like movie or show.
Mm.
Like that. It
Oh.
can't just be like the movie though. It's like a good meal.
Good
You
meal.
just got
that
it
you
ready.
didn't make. That
Yeah.
you ordered it.
Yeah, you like order, you just get
Yeah.
it, and you're so excited to eat this, and
Yeah.
you got like a great program to watch. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty relaxing.
Yeah.
That's
The
satisfying.
Discovery Channel. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Okay, last question in the Get to Know You section. What's your favorite childhood memory of playing outside?
I got it. I used to have this like little battery powered little car that you could drive as a kid, and it was a little red Jeep, and I would whip that thing
Oh,
around my
yes.
backyard. I was like flying down my backyard. I just have vivid memory. Yeah. And I think that's how I learned how to drive, like initially, and it really was because then my dad shortly after that, as a
That's how
young,
you learned how to drift.
yeah,
Drifting, doing donuts.
as a young kid, my dad would take me to drive like in parking lots and stuff, like in his lap and stuff. And then, but he like taught me how to drive before I was 10. Like before I was
Wow.
10, I knew how to like back up, reverse, park, everything. But I think it started in that moment. I was like whipping that little Jeep around the
Yeah.
backyard. So
Need for
Yeah.
speed, man.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, out here drifting that
What about
10
you
for real.
guys?
I have lots of really great memories. My childhood was filled with being outside in California,
Mm.
where the weather was very hospitable for that. What I loved, one thing that stands out is just my neighborhood friends. We would, all this imagination. We would play like as if we were doing these like battles or like these fantasy kind of things. So we get like sticks or like make weapons out of them. And what we would do is we lived at one time. I moved like 12 times before I was 18, but
Wow.
one of those houses was on a cul-de-sac. And do you guys know what a cul-de-sac is?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes Chicago doesn't have the same stuff we do. But we lived on a cul-de-sac, so there wasn't a ton of vehicle traffic. And so we would line up on each end of the cul-de-sac with our weapons, with our like, you know, our broom handles without the broom on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get bikes and our bikes would be like our horses. So a couple people would have them. And then we would just like count down and then just like yell charge and just like run down the street at each other and just like have these like little fights and stuff.
I feel like we
It
don't
was
see that
awesome.
anymore. Like I want to see that when I look outside
Yeah.
my window. I want to see like the neighborhood kids like
Yeah.
Or those like horse heads, like the sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Horse
there's
head sticks.
Everybody's on their screens, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Digital age for
Yeah.
sure.
I don't have one specific moment, but when I think about childhood memory of playing outside, we would always play with this family. There was a family across the street of my growing up house, my childhood home, that was an Indian family, and their names were Lucas, Dosman, and Anne Mary. And we would hang out with them. Did we ever hang out? Did you guys ever?
I feel like once or twice.
Yeah, and so we were like close in age, and we would play, you know, guns and cops and robbers and G.I. Joes and kickball, and so we had a bunch of memories. But they were like the closest kids to our house, and we always hung out with them outside. So we had a bunch of memories like that. But yeah. Fun stuff.
That's awesome.
Did you guys sing with them? Yo.
Probably, yeah.
Marching around the backyard.
Anything we watched in a TV show for sure or a movie was getting into our play. But yeah, they were fun.
Yeah.
Those are I
Too
think about
good.
like playing outside.
It's good.
I think one of my favorite was when no one else wanted to play outside, I would go outside and climb the tree in our front yard. It was like one of those magnolia trees. So it was like good trunks to climb, you know? And there was this like split in the thing that overlooked the sidewalk. And so I would climb and I would lay and just watch people like walk by. So they would look up and be like, oh, hi. And I pretend like they couldn't see me. It was
Like a squirrel.
such a weird child.
That's what squirrels do.
Yeah, but I would act like they couldn't see me, literally.
That's
It's
awesome.
just, yeah, interesting.
Okay.
All right, passing it off to Abel.
Yes. So we're going to move on to some questions about the podcast. So Josiah, I'm going to ask you first and anyone can chime in. Why does New Life do a podcast and what is the point of a podcast?
You know, we do several different types of podcasts. We sometimes we do one-off podcasts or limited series podcasts that are resources for, you know, the church and the kingdom. We did a restart podcast that talks about how we restart churches. We did a podcast about the history of New Life. We did with a lot of the guys who are, you know, Asa and Mike, and we did a podcast about for churches about how to go from like 1 to 3. I think generally, even this podcast, why we do the podcast is because we want it to be a daily discipleship tool that goes alongside people's spiritual growth. And sometimes there's things that we don't always get to talk about on Sunday morning or to the length that we want to talk about them
Or
on
in
Sunday
life
morning
group,
or in
or-
life group
yeah.
or whatever, that we feel like this is a great supplement to go alongside people's spiritual growth.
Yeah. And our 3 values are, or I guess the 3 pillars to our podcast are authenticity, community, and value, right? So we want to be authentic, we want to develop a community, and we want to add value to your life. And so part of that is talking about conversations that deal specifically with theology, and sometimes it's topics in life, like I'm blanking on some of our podcast topics recently that we've done. How to wait well,
Worship.
navigating failures, friendships, relationships. I mean, all sorts of topics, right? So anything you guys want to add to that question?
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I like the word
Sums it up.
supplement. We're
Yeah.
not imagining that this is your main diet of spiritual health.
No.
But
Yeah.
it's supplemental. So
Yeah, this is like the broccoli in the on the dish, or
maybe
maybe
not the broccoli.
maybe not the broccoli. Maybe
I don't know
maybe
why.
the
I don't know if-
supplement.
yeah.
maybe it's the vitamin. Maybe it's the vitamin you take in the morning.
This is the protein shake, Abel. The protein
Associated
powder.
with broccoli. It's not. Our
I love
brand,
broccoli.
You know?
Okay, moving on. How long does it take to film a podcast?
30 minutes? 40 minutes?
Well, we try to. Here's the thing.
From the moment we walk into the room.
Yeah.
Oh,
the moment
okay.
we
Yeah, it's a bit
leave.
longer.
We try to shoot for 30 minutes ish. Obviously, you guys know we sometimes go up to 40, 45. Sometimes we go less. But there's always at least 10, sometimes 15, sometimes 20 minutes where we're talking ahead of time, just like, hey, we're just kind of fleshing out the idea. What is the direction we want to go? How do we want to structure it? Who's going to kind of primarily lead the discussion
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it could take, I mean, typically like within an hour or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually within an hour.
And then Esto, I mean, our producer Esteban, he puts a lot more work into it.
Yeah.
Editing, creating the reels,
Shout out to
YouTube
Esteban.
shorts, stuff like
Shout out
that.
to
So
Esteban.
he's
And setting up the room.
and
'cause-
setting up the room, yeah, with the lights and the cameras and the microphones.
Yeah.
So his answer would be very different
Yeah.
than ours.
I'd say 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Setup, chatting, filming, editing.
He makes it very easy for us
Yes.
to come in.
Does a
and
great
to
job.
Sit down. Does a great job. Okay. What does a podcast studio look like? So we're going to put a picture here in the video if you're watching on YouTube so you can see the podcast. But essentially, I mean, you got the wall here, and then behind the cameras, you got Esteban producing, some couches, a rug. Pretty simple. Nothing.
If
too
they're
crazy.
online, Abel just described it. You have a wall here.
We only have one wall.
Table here.
The wall. You have the wall here. If you're listening and you're not watching, go to YouTube.
Yeah,
and you
we
can see
do
what it
have
looks
4
like.
walls, just to clarify.
Yeah.
There are 4 walls.
There's one wall.
Abel's like,
That's
there's a wall,
colorful.
there's a
That's colorful. Anyways, you'll see the picture.
Good mural by Alex Cruz.
Yes.
Shout out
This
to
is the
Alex
art. He does a
Cruz.
lot of the graphic stuff, and he's amazing.
Yeah,
So
all the
shout out-
graphics
shout out
across
to
the
Alex.
church, Alex is involved in, and he also is an amazing
artist.
artist in general, and does murals like this. So there's a bunch of murals he's done all over Chicago land area, really.
And
And
New
beyond,
Life
yeah.
Centers.
New Life
Yeah,
Centers,
here
their
at
vans
Midway,
now have
vans.
these decals.
Yeah.
Great
he's
stuff.
a beast. He's a beast. Okay. What is the most difficult thing for you about the podcast, and what is the most satisfying thing for you?
Most difficult thing for me, if you've listened for a while, you've probably kind of picked this up, but I'm a verbal processor, so I can ramble a lot. And so for me, the most difficult thing is just trying to kind of funnel my thoughts into a concise kind of articulation of them. And that can be very difficult at times. And sometimes I'm like, oh, this is a good thought. Let me follow it. And I'm like, wait, this isn't going anywhere. And things like that. So that's kind of my biggest challenge, is just figuring out how do I express myself well and concisely so that we're not just listening to a ramble.
Yeah.
A ramble.
That's good.
I kind of help pick the topics, and I think it's sometimes hard to decide what is like valuable for people and the different ages. You know, of people watching, I think it's sometimes difficult to think like, is this going to be valuable? Is this not?
Yeah.
So I think that's where I struggle. But it's also really one of the most satisfying things is like hearing feedback from you as a viewer, hearing stories and even moments of encouragement. I think that's like the most satisfying part.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think one of the most difficult things for me is probably just like getting out of your head. Like when you're talking, you're like, how is this going to land? It's like,
Mhm.
I can't control it. It's going to land sometimes, you know? So not like overthinking what you're going to say, just speaking from your heart.
My answer is definitely Lauren's answer. Yeah. Same with satisfying, same with difficult. I think topics, are we talking about things that are valuable, that connect with people, or sometimes just choosing the right topics. Yeah. I think it's a big one.
Okay. Last podcast question. How did each of you get invited to be a part of the podcast?
Josiah Job.
Did I invite all you guys? Is that is that how it happened? Yeah.
We did the
So you-
residency podcast, and then
Okay.
that week after, we're like, we should do this again. And then,
And then
we're like,
Kent was kind of like, oh, we should do like a podcast for young adults. And then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
called me.
Yeah.
And then we invited Zach because he was here.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
just became a permanent
Yeah,
member.
Were you just
I
here
was-
one of the
Yeah,
weeks?
he was just here.
So I was here. So Lauren and I were coming. We had carpool together because I had a meeting here later on here at Midway, and was Elena with us that day? I think one of our interns was with us. Yeah, so she was
Oh,
with us as
right.
well, and so we come in, and
On the way, I had said, Zach, be prepared for them to ask you to be a part of the podcast.
yeah, and so we're talking about it on the way in, and then Lauren, and then we walk in, and then I think Kent was the first one. Was like, "You jumping on the podcast today?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then
Dreams.
and then Josiah was like, "Hey, you jumping on the podcast?" It's like, I don't know,
I'm
man.
jumping on the podcast.
And
I'm
then
jumping on
so
the
I think
podcast.
asked, and then a few minutes later, I get a text from Abel, who's upstairs, who's like, "Dude, you should totally join the podcast today." And I was like, "I guess if
I guess
everyone's
I'm in the
insisting, I'm
podcast."
gonna be on a podcast."
Yeah.
And then later on, Josiah, you had texted me and was like, "Hey, we're looking for a fourth host. Would you be interested in doing this again?"
Yeah.
And so that was really
It was
cool.
good chemistry from the first one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Natural.
Cool. All right. Handing it
We
off
all
to
like to
Zach.
talk. We're all yappers.
By the way, we're doing good on time with these questions.
Yeah,
Let's keep
I'm
going.
really
impressed.
convinced.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. All right, I've got the 5 church trend related ones.
Oh boy.
So here's
Ooh.
here's an interesting one. We live in a digital age. This is an interesting question that has come up since COVID.
Yeah.
This is especially important during COVID, but I think we have some stragglers still. What do you guys think? Can I call myself a member of the church if I only attend online? If I only watch online? Is it valid to only attend church online? We can flesh it out, nuance it, whatever you think.
Right. Josiah.
So what I would say is, yes, you can call yourself a member of the church. That's almost like weird.
Of capital, like overall church, like we're talking like worldwide.
I think they're
church, or
talking
like
local.
Okay,
I think they're
gotcha.
talking local.
Gotcha.
Member's a whole loaded word too. That
Yeah.
it's like, a member, what's not a member.
Right.
But I think that someone could call themselves part of a church, a member of a church, if they attend online.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the second question, is it valid to only attend church online? So I think it's valid to only attend church online if I don't think that's ideal.
Right.
So is it valid? Depending on what you say about the word valid, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's ideal. I don't think it's the ideal.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some things you can't fully do online. Now, is it better to attend a church online and be connected with a community online than not be connected at all?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't have churches around them that are healthy or good. Or, I've talked with people that watch online. I remember talking to one mom who said, my daughter has been in the hospital for the last 6 months with cancer, and we haven't been able to come at all. So she literally told me this. So to listen and be a part of the church and be encouraged by the church every week online, she said, has been like
Wow.
life,
Wow.
like everything for me. So in that sense, I know when I think of even that story, I'm
Yeah.
like, for her, it's totally valid.
Yeah.
For that season, for that walk.
Yeah.
I think if it's more out of comfort, and you can go and be part of a local church, then that's going to be a better experience for you, because you're going to have deeper relationships. You're going to be able to serve, use your giftings, learn, be connected. And I think online is still limited at this point in that regard.
Yeah, it's really good. I like the way you phrase that it's not ideal. Like it's valid, but it's not ideal. Like you're not going to get the most out of church community and the body as you would in person. So I like that answer.
Yeah,
I think that's
ditto.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like, yeah, if there's extenuating circumstances
Yeah.
that makes it very difficult or impossible to be in person, that's pretty valid. But the purpose of church is to gather together to worship the Lord, to create this, community of heaven on earth in the local church. And that requires relationships, that requires for, your own spiritual growth and encouragement and things, people knowing you. It's
Yeah.
hard to be truly known and seen when you're online. And I know some people may have felt that before. And so being in person deepens those things. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can be intentional online with those like
Community.
communities.
Yeah. Especially if you have a VR headset, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of churches there.
Shaking hands, like high fiving.
Get to meet you. Yes. That's good.
Yeah, but it's difficult. It's difficult to connect. Like during worship, like when you're singing, like it's awkward to sing alone in your
Yeah.
with your family,
I would
like sitting
imagine.
on the couch.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
definitely like not ideal.
I don't think
But-
any of your closest relationships are limited to one space either. Right. And I tell people that even in the physical church building, like if all your connection with this person in the faith, like this brother, sister in the Lord, this friend, is only within the church building,
Yeah.
that's a very limited relationship.
Yep.
Because all of our
Yep.
closest, most important relationships, we always extend to our home, to
Yeah.
restaurants, to parks.
Right.
Like it goes beyond one space.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I challenge people even within, like, I come, I know people. It's like, yeah, but have you gone out to a restaurant with them? Do you know them? Have they been over to your house? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's important. And I think online is kind of that, it's a little one dimensional right now.
Sure.
No.
There's actually a church, and I won't belabor this, but there's a church, the church that John Mark Comer was at, Bridgetown,
yeah.
whatever, with Tyler's now the pastor there. And they just decided to shut down their online stream.
Yeah.
And so because they kind of felt like that wasn't what they wanted for people in their fullness,
Yeah.
my only thing with that, and so I respect that decision, my concern with that is that it actually maybe doesn't solve the full problem of what they're trying to, resolve. Like I think if there's people that are engaging in another state online with that church,
Right.
they're just going to find another church online.
Right.
Like I'm not sure they're going to go find a church down the street that they want to connect with. I think they would have done that already.
Yeah.
So I think they're just going to shift online. But maybe that's the philosophy that the church wants a certain type of commitment
Yeah.
in person. And it probably would move some people that are local to that church that need to be in person
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are maybe supplementing with online.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also frees up like attention that like church volunteers and leaders are pouring into the online content and freeing them up to kind of
Be
plug
in
in more.
person.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's very complex.
Yeah.
question. All right, next question. When I was thinking of church trends, I kept going to like negative, like
Yeah.
frustrating church trends. So I did this one so we weren't just negative.
Nice.
What is a church trend that gives you hope?
Mm.
What is something that's like kind of going on in church that a lot of people are talking about, or certain behavior or emphases that give you hope? That are
Yeah.
like, this is good.
I think at least in like church leadership, I think there's a growing. I think there was how do I say this? It was put on the back. Integrity was put on the back burner.
Mm.
So like it was like known to be a person of character and of integrity, but like then you had so many of these prominent church leaders like crash and burn, and I think now it's kind of like, wait, like we lost the value and just like the life of integrity, and I feel like that's like shifting back to a prominence in church leadership and hopefully in leadership all across the world. But so that gives me hope, because I think that's it's key, and it's how the Lord wants us to lead and serve, is having a heart that is a heart of integrity, and a heart that is the same, a person who's the same in public as they are in private. So that gives me hope.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Can't really think of any.
I think big picture church. I was listening to a pastor yesterday. He said it's the highest level in 50 years for people's hunger for God. And Barna says that 44% of people are more open to God than they were pre-pandemic.
Wow.
And we know it's even higher with the younger generations. Like it's like 70 or 80% for young generations that are like looking for God.
Yeah.
So that's super hopeful to me.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're not seeing a lot of fruit locally, or you're just kind of looking at how the world seems to be unraveling in different seasons, you can get really discouraged.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God's not working, he's not moving. This is, we're kind of the last generation. And I think sometimes it's helpful to look at research and get around different areas where God is working in different ways to be encouraged. But I think the trend we're seeing right now is incredible openness.
Yeah.
That's super hopeful to me.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
Yeah, I love the churches are starting to open up and realize for that openness, they need to have a welcoming, hospitable place for that, where people are welcome with their questions, people are welcome with who they really are, to be genuine and things like that. There's more. I mean, there's still struggles. I mean, obviously, we have a limited perspective in our own experiences. So there's different church traditions. There are churches in other places, whatever.
Yeah.
But in my view, the church kind of opening up and realizing like, hey, we need to talk about grief more helpfully, or we need to address like mental health, and kind of reprioritizing certain ideas and challenging maybe long held beliefs that may or may not be accurate or healthy. Like that, I think it's always good to be self-evaluative and to think, is this thing that we've been doing forever and thinking forever, is this actually what we should be thinking and teaching? Not obviously compromising on the gospel and the core things, but sometimes culture can seep into the church. The world can seep into the church, and we have to constantly be thinking, how can we make sure that we're staying faithful? So I like that it feels like we're in a very self-evaluative kind of phase in church in general.
It's good.
All right, this is an interesting one. What is something about dating culture in the church that you think should end?
I'm married, so I'm going to let you guys start.
That's a good question.
Going to groups and church to find someone.
On the prowl.
That's a hot take.
I think that's too strong of a dismissed culture, that like if you can so easily slide into that being your motive. And I think like it's fun and games, but I think there's a level, there's like you cross the line sometimes where it's just like you're now enabling people's heart motive to be searching for someone, when in the end, if that's a byproduct of going to church and spending time in community, that's great. But if it's not your original intention to like be with God and in his community for the sole purpose of your relationship with him and growth and becoming more Christ-like, then I think we've missed the point.
That's good. Yeah, that's what you're seeking first. Yeah. That's really good, Lauren.
Honestly, care couple. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Care couples are great. Care couples are
Hey,
great.
can we talk real quick?
Sidebar.
No, that's great. No, that's funny. I don't know. Like, so I'm dating right now, but I'm not dating someone who goes to my church. He goes to a different church. So I haven't experienced like negative things when it comes to like within church dating. Like you're going to the same church.
Anything outside of it could be like dating in Christianity in general.
Yeah, things you've observed. You went to a Christian college. There's
I did, yeah. There's
some interesting dating
I think there's a
culture.
high emphasis on like I think in like church leadership and stuff, there's a high emphasis on like which is great, but like getting married. Like
Ugh.
there seems to be like this, like you gotta get married in order to have
That's a good one.
an effective ministry.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
is that true though?
Yeah.
So I think I think that's people are moving away from that. I think
Yeah.
that was more so like probably
Yeah.
at least the more common thing earlier or several years ago. Whereas I don't think it's as common as it is as it was. So
It'd be interesting to do an episode on like dating and marriage and singleness and the message of marriage in the church. Yeah, it'd be really interesting. I could think of so many things. One thing I was thinking of is just like moving too quickly.
Really good.
oh yeah.
That's good.
And that like has to do obviously like physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, spiritual boundaries. Like people can rush into these things and and rush
I
intimacy,
thought of something.
and then even rush into marriage. Like
Yeah.
kind of you were kind of hinting at a little bit, Abel. And what happens is the relationship gets based on all these kind of things that are moving too quickly without a foundation to actually a healthy foundation to build upon. Kind of how like you were talking about with integrity too.
Yeah.
Like there's this position or this relationship without the actual substance that's
Yeah.
there. And so you can base a relationship on physical intimacy
Attraction,
or
yeah.
these things that you're not ready for yet. Or if you marry someone very quickly, you don't fully know that person, you know? And so I'm not saying it's never okay to marry someone, like date briefly. And then I've seen it work out, but I think generally we need to be careful with the amount of time we take.
I've heard a great line said that dating is for investigating and not building intimacy. It's like, oh,
That's good.
that's really good.
Probably shifts at a certain point.
Yeah.
But I would say that was good. You kind of spurred mine. That's exactly, I think dating culture in the church at large, Christianity, I would say is sometimes it's like a bullet train to marriage.
Yeah.
And you're like trying to slow people down. Where people in the world, because they're living together and it's like 3, 4, 5 years
Yeah.
before they're married. But sometimes it's like 3 months, 6 months, like we're ready. We want to get married. And Esteban's laughing because he knows it's true. And it's not a bad thing. It can happen. But we encourage here, based on data, based on experience, that about a year of dating before marriage. So is like a healthy, can you see somebody through all 4 seasons? But oftentimes that's a unique thing to Christianity or church dating is like the rushing to get married. Which can cause a lot of problems. We see a lot of problems when people rush to get married in that.
Can I just say one more? One that came to mind.
Maybe we need to build a podcast episode out of
let's
this.
do a
sounds like
podcast
we
about
got
But like the trend of celebrating marriage and not singleness, and like how it's so easily it's so easy to build marriage or to pour into because it's like a new thing and it needs guidance and direction. But I think like so often people don't realize like single people also need to be like and as a single person I'm saying this, but like I talk to a lot of people that are like no one recognizes that like singleness is good and they just say like enjoy it while you can, but there's no direction given or like how to utilize that time well, how to develop yourself, which leads into another trend that you're going to find like a better person at church, which is just not true. Like you're not going to find this there are amazing people in the church, but like the trend of like, I'm going to go to church to find someone because they're better than the people that I'm going to find at like Walgreens or my other, corporate job. Like it's not true. Like people are people and whether they love the Lord or not, we all struggle with like selfishness and pride and all this other stuff. So anyway, this
There's
should be
you're
its
not going
own
to find somebody
episode.
that's perfect inside the church or outside of it, right?
Well, and I hope you find someone at Walgreens. Your hand reaches for the Tylenol.
Oh my
at the
gosh.
same-
Why silent? Oh yeah. I got a headache. Like,
blowing your nose and your hands touch and you're like, oh, I need to get some hand sanitizer now.
oh,
No, yeah.
Next question.
There's so much we could say. Yeah. Okay, what churchy words, or what Christianese some people say, what churchy words do you think are more confusing than helpful? And what would be better language to communicate the same idea?
So let me throw one out. This is probably the main word used to describe this action. And it's not a bad word. I don't have anything against it. I just think that sometimes words get hijacked or really loaded, or maybe even feel old sometimes, and you can convey it in a more appropriate way or a
Yeah.
different way. So I think evangelism.
Yes, that's exactly mine.
I think evangelism is one of those words. It's a great word. It's the best word that can describe, and everyone knows what it is. I think it's kind of a little bit of, feels a little old to me, feels a little loaded. Not bad at all. I don't have any issue with it.
Yeah.
But I prefer, I think, language that, because you have to explain that word
Right.
to someone that doesn't know, that maybe hasn't been a Christian for a long time.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what's that?
Mhm.
And I think anytime you have to explain a word extra, maybe there's a better way to say it. And so I
Yep.
think sharing your faith
Mhm.
is a better way that people get it
Yeah.
right
It's the
away,
same thing.
and you don't have to explain it.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
one that I would.
That's I'm 100%. That's exactly what I thought. Evangelism, you either have to explain it to people who don't know it, or you have to unload all the baggage that it carries to people who do know it. Because when people hear the word evangelism, they think of like
Street preachers.
angry or intrusive or just like
Yeah.
energetic corner street preachers. Nothing wrong with them.
Yep.
Necessarily. There have been some crazy ones, but they think of street corner preaching and they're like, I don't want to do that. They think of like talking to someone randomly on the street or in
Yeah.
the train. Those are all there's places for that. So like,
but it's
Yeah.
not the only method.
but it's not the only
Right.
way that sharing your faith looks like.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of, people don't realize like, hey, it's having relationships. It's loving the people around you and things like that. So
Yeah.
evangelism was the one I thought
That's
of
good.
for sure.
I think of, this might be a little bit of a hot take. I think fellowship, personally, like
Yeah,
I think it's a great word, and I think there is a space for the word fellowship because when believers get together and spend time together, right, you're fellowshipping, you're building one another up. But then when it comes to like inviting people who aren't believers in, it's like it's I don't think it's technically considered fellowshipping anymore because they're not believers, right? But I think like that word can be used to just describe hanging out, and it's like, oh, we're gonna fellowship. I'm like, no, you just can go hang out with people, like
Yeah.
like, and that's okay, that's
You
cool.
can drink
Like
some coffee.
you should drink some
like,
coffee, like
yeah.
it, and so I think people, it makes them feel more spiritual sometimes. And maybe that's me just being judgmental or whatever. Like I'm like, I feel like that makes you feel like you're a little bit more spiritual, but whatever. I never say fellowship. I say hanging out, like spending time together, especially as I'm talking to students who never been to church, who are unchurched, who are coming to church for the first time.
Yep.
If you say, oh, let's go fellowship, I'm like, what? What is
You
that?
wanna do what?
Yeah, we're gonna do what?
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
true,
like,
that's
no, let's
true.
just
That's good.
spend
That's
some time
good.
together.
And arguably, biblically, like the word fellowship, the Greek word that's used is not just like chilling and hanging out.
Yeah.
It's like people like supporting each other
Right.
in like
Like a
very
deeper
like
sense of
super
community.
super deep,
Yeah.
like a co-laboring together.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I was making a flyer the other day and we almost put fellowship. I'm like, no, it was for youth. And we're like,
Yeah.
no way, they're not gonna.
Yeah, they're
that's
not
not
gonna
gonna
get it.
connect. They don't know
Yeah.
what that. Yeah.
I think the word glory. So when people are like use like that phrase, like, oh well, like all glory to Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just shared my deep, painful experience that I'm going through right now, and you
Yeah.
just said all glory to God.
Yeah.
One, you're dismissing what I'm going through and how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really apply.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
like help me get through this in order to get to that place of like bringing glory to God, even
Yeah.
though my circumstances might not feel that way. So I think that's like an overused,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kind of
Kinda
like
misused.
dismissal,
Yeah.
like Christianity phrase that people use to.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know what to say to you right now, and I'm a
Lord,
little
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
uncomfortable. But
Well, God
glory
is
to
good.
God. Yeah.
And I was like, yes, he is, but
Or
like,
yeah.
it's like, don't dismiss someone's pain just because of your Christianese phrases.
When people say, when you ask someone, hey, how you doing? Really? I'm like, blessed and highly favored. I'm like,
And you're like, wow,
Hey.
did you go to Hobby Lobby
all
today?
right, cool. Like
Yeah.
that one. Or when people say from the stage, like, we're called, like, you should glorify God, or like glorifying God. I'm like,
yeah.
I get it, right? And I understand what you mean. But if your context is majority not believers, then it's like, what if you say we're called to reflect God?
Right.
Reflect his image or reflect his,
And if someone doesn't know who God is and his character, that's like, it just says like, well, I don't want to follow God then. Like you're
Right.
saying in my pain, I just have to bring glory to this God. Like what?
Yeah.
Well, on a side note as well, I don't read too much of like the church news and all the kind of what's going on in the bigger church world all the time. But one of the ones that somebody just asked me, they're like, "Hey, did you see? They're like Elevation, their whole thing. They got the person that spoke, and I don't know all the details, but from what I've seen, the person that was speaking on the language that they use was their marketing person.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how they're going to market
Right.
to basically unbelievers.
Right.
And they said, instead of using the words to market blood of Jesus,
Yeah.
we're going to use this instead of
Yeah.
using, and I'm like, okay, they're
Yeah.
using marketing language with people that they're not going to, the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, I was telling, it was my sister who was asking, the early church, because the early communion early on in the church was called love feasts, they actually, the culture misinterpreted that and basically thought they were like Christian orgies.
Yeah.
And so
dear Lord.
they thought, because think about it, they took a word, they're like, hey, these are love feasts, and they like totally had this totally different interpretation.
Right.
And so I'm glad that we don't call it love feasts anymore, right? But that we call it, communion or the Lord's. So I think there's things you can do. Once again, I don't know if there's all the flack that they got, but from what I saw it was their marketing person that said, this is how we want to communicate to people that would not know Christianese, Christian language.
Yeah.
I don't think they diluted their message
Yeah.
as they preached the gospel, but it was more explaining people what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
I personally don't have an issue with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. These situations take nuance. We like to react to things, especially with certain, so people have certain problems with certain churches or people, and then they're just like ready to react to whatever.
loaded.
And it's often very nuanced, and you got to give people benefit of the doubt and not just like react, because there's often more understandable things going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's answer this one a little bit briefly. What is something you're hopeful about when you think about the next generation and the way that we approach church?
They're so hungry. They're so open. There's something special, I think, about the generations that are coming up. And it makes me super excited. I'm super hopeful for the way that they're just the desire they have to know God, and their openness is very, very, very exciting
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, I have one. I think of one of my senior boys who started a Bible study club, the Jesus Club, in his school. Right, nothing. And I'm thinking about back to when I was a senior, and I was like, I would have never done that. Like I just would have been too fearful or whatever it is. And he was like, no, I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
And
it's a
he's
boldness.
he's had a couple of people put their faith in Jesus for the first time.
Wow.
It's like,
It's crazy.
so yeah, I think of that. Like I think of boldness, people who are just ready to go.
I think we one thing that I'm realizing is that like a young person like 18, 19, 20 to 20 whatever, I think like they have so much to offer, and we don't often think of their capabilities as like they're able to do hard things or like carry heavy weight or roll out things that we've never done before. So I think I'm really hopeful to see like how the younger generation in our church helps shape our church for the
Yep.
future, and
good.
how we are like kind of already going that route. So it's really exciting to think about.
It's good. A lot of people talk about the younger generation as like, oh, they're weak. They don't know how to.
Or they need training before they jump in. It's like, actually, no, they jump in and then they get trained. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
like-
I would just say, just along with the openness, just people's desire to be genuine and who they really are, and even the openness to other people of different faiths, of different perspectives, of different traditions, of different backgrounds, all those kind of things. I think that will result in a very beautiful community in the future, and even now
True.
that's starting to form. So I just love thinking about that.
That's good.
All right.
all right.
And I'm so excited that we're building Project 72.
Hey.
Shameless
Lauren,
plug.
give it 10-second plug.
Project72.org.
There it is.
There it is.
There it
All
is.
right.
For
All the
Excited.
information, discipleship. If you're 18 to 22, go check out project72.org.
For anyone who's still with us. in
Yeah.
this,
All right, if you're still with us, though, you get the hot take
take
questions.
questions.
Here we go. Okay, number one.
Oh boy.
Should a man always be the one paying for things in a relationship?
I like the LOL right there.
LOL at the end.
relationship is it's an undefined term. So that makes things a little difficult. What do you guys think?
What do we say? Dating. Let's say dating
I just realized
relationship.
I'm not
Let's say
ready to
dating
answer.
relationship.
I didn't even think about this little one.
Let's say dating relationship
would
because most
say-
people are gonna put it in that time, right?
Like
Yeah.
long term?
Yeah.
Well,
Dating.
maybe
It could
there are
be
dating,
phases.
dating,
Maybe there are
dating,
phases.
dating.
Maybe it changes over
I think for the
time.
most part, the guy should step up to pay for things.
The guy asks the girl out for the first time. I
Okay.
think the first date, the guy pays.
Mhm.
Second date, okay, at least offer.
Mhm.
And then go from there. I think you should.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the guy only paying though.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that's nice. I don't think there's anything wrong with like a woman paying, but I think it's nice for the guy to pay. I mean, a lot
And the
of
woman feels so loved by that. So.
yeah. I think it's just a great respectful thing to
Yep.
do. It's like opening the door for
Mhm.
someone. You know, it's nice. It's cool. But I don't think long term like the boyfriend should be paying for every meal or every
Mhm.
ticket or every whatever. But yeah, that can be worked out depending on the relationship.
Let me press a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
Esteban,
Yeah.
come over here. We'll bring Esteban on for this question. All right, to the men, if she insists on paying for the first date or splitting the first date, if she insists, starting with Esteban, do you let her or do you say no? Like, I got to pay for the first date.
I would just simply say, no, I've got it. Leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or tell her, I want to pay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
he wants to pay, but he would, try to lead in that
Yeah.
way. Abel,
I'd pay.
you'd pay. She's like, no, I really, really want to. You're like, nah, let me cover the first one.
Mhm.
Zach.
Yeah, I'd insist respectfully and see. It would be interesting because it would be interesting to kind of talk through and wonder like why do you, if she's like really insistent, why are you so insistent?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it could be something where it's like,
There's something deeper beyond it. There's something deeper beyond it.
yeah, that could be like a difficult thing for her, but also could be a really good thing. And it's like, oh, I get that, and I want to honor that in you.
Yeah.
So like, if this is really important and you like whatever,
But
then
see, maybe that's where you should plug in. Like, well, on our next date,
Hey.
Yeah. Well, I would.
Smooth.
Yeah, I would definitely insist, but my masculinity would not be challenged by allowing her to
That's
pay.
good. Yeah.
if we talk it out, you know, and
You
that's
would, you
the
would
kinda,
just prefer, but you wouldn't be challenged in your
No.
masculinity. You would just prefer to lead in that.
Yeah, I think a relationship should be negotiative. I don't know, you know. And that's a respectful thing to do. So depending on like the reason, I would definitely insist and be like, no, I really got this. Really, I want to do this. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I've talked with people that situation has come up, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like there's an insisting that she would be pay half, or that she would. And I think
by the
okay.
guy insisting?
She would insist. Like there was a
Oh.
woman who went on a date, and she was like insisting that she would pay half. No. I want to pay half. I want to pay half. I'm
I
like,
feel like the only time a woman would do that is if they feel like a burden or if they like maybe didn't enjoy the date. So they didn't want to walk away knowing I just had a free meal.
that's true. Yeah. Like
But
they
then
don't want
there's
to feel.
people
They don't
that
want to
are
feel
like-
any obligation.
Yeah, there's people addicted to first dates because they just get free stuff from them.
Dang.
Dang.
Hey, work the system.
Open that can of worms up.
I'll write that down for a future episode.
Come on. That is
No
true. I
way.
think that's, you have to, yeah. I think you have to kind of have a certain type of character to be able to just kind of work a system like that. I
Yeah.
don't think that's most people across the board.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Second hot take. Should social media be restricted to 18 years and up? Should, the follow up is, should TikTok be banned?
So specific
Because there's like that big
thing
thing
with
right
the
now,
TikTok.
I think
Listen, yeah.
considering just like the minimal reading I've done on it, research I've done on it, screens and social media is horrible for teenagers. Like
Yeah.
as brains are forming, it's
Yeah.
so like the overexposure, the overstimulation of it. I think probably you could do it in healthy moderation, healthy doses, but people have yet to find that balance, and it's been damaging.
Yeah.
Teenagers'
It's like,
brains.
how do you even say no to your kid?
Right.
Like your teenager who's like every other friend is literally using that as a route for communication.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to answer this in America where we are all about unrestrained freedom
Yeah.
and liberties and stuff like that, and we don't realize that that can be a very toxic thing. So, when you ask the question, should I
Yeah.
do think there should be limitations? I don't know about 18 and up, but I do think there should be, even for older people older than 18. But the data is like, especially with teenagers, that there should be some kind of enforced limitation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that just makes sense. The TikTok thing ban, I actually need to study more on that. I don't
Yeah.
really know the answer
Yeah.
to that one,
Mm.
but I do think there should be some healthy limitations.
It's more about Yeah, I'm like scared to say anything about that, but it's more about like data being leaked because TikTok is owned by another country. And so in that sense, I think what they said was if an American company buys TikTok, we will keep TikTok. So I think that's like a good route
Yeah.
to keep a big platform that many people use.
Yeah.
But if it's not bought by
Yeah,
an
that's what I've heard.
American company,
Well,
I would say I think it should be banned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I heard the contention is, like the data.
Yeah.
Yeah, the TikTok thing is basically comes down to a national security thing is kind of what
Watch
the
this podcast get flagged.
yeah, that's no, it's not getting flagged. That's at least what the argument is that it's owned by a Chinese company, Bit something, I forget what it's called, Bit something. And so they have access to the data in USA. So I don't have TikTok. I don't care. Should it be banned? Maybe. I don't know. We'll let other people debate that, have more information than we have. Should social media be restricted to 18 years and up? I think that would be a great thing that would have great, massive impacts. The U.S. Surgeon General in 2023 basically said that under 13 years old shouldn't have it. And he, in an ideal world, he would recommend, I believe, 16 years old. And there is hard research that's correlated with literally hard research that's correlated with the more time you spend on social media, the less happy you are.
Yeah.
The more mental health issues are, the more anxious you are. I mean, like direct correlation. You spend more time on social media, your health goes down. Yeah. I'll give one more kind of interesting thought because this is not my thought. Somebody else shared this. So I read a while ago, somebody said it will be interesting to see if in the future how we treat social media and social media companies is similar to how big tobacco is treated.
Right.
Like big tobacco in the beginning, there was children smoking and we didn't really fully understand the full effect and damage of cigarettes.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah, you can do it in restaurants, on planes.
which is crazy.
Section,
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And now everyone's like, oh, a kid's smoking, that's insane.
Yeah.
I wonder if 20,
Social
30,
media.
40, 50 years from now when the research is just even more overwhelming, if we're going to say, what? You were giving 12 and 13-year-olds phones? Like it's basically, you're handing them basically a cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I ever
That would
have
be
children,
super
they're getting Nokia flip phones. Let me tell you.
Come on. Come on now.
I'm just thinking of the Chinese agents who are monitoring TikTok and they're just seeing a bunch of like eclipse conspiracy theories, like the world is going to end, and they're just like shaking their heads.
These
That's what I'm
Americans
thinking.
are quite interesting.
So that's my take, but I think it's up to parents.
Yeah.
So do what's right for you, for your home. Okay, number 3, is it ever acceptable to lie?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think the famous example was like if you're hiding Jewish people during,
The Holocaust.
the Holocaust, and you said that you didn't have any.
Yeah.
You were telling the truth to the higher moral standard of saving life.
Yeah. There in the ethical world, the philosophical, theological, ethical conversation around this is there are multiple ways you could approach that question, which is like lying is a sin, but in light of the heavier concern of life,
Right.
it pales in comparison, and therefore it's either not considered wrong or it's considered like forgiven or things like that. So they're different. Just you can look this up yourself, but there are a lot of conversations about the different
Super
ways to think
interesting.
about it.
Yeah.
But in that situation, like truly, like you should
You're obligated to the higher truth.
the higher importance, which is human life. And you lied,
that's
like
a scary
ask the Lord for
line.
forgiveness. It's tough, but like totally,
you
you
saved
gotta do it.
life. Yeah.
Lauren?
I mean, it's like I totally get that perspective, but if it's acceptable in one way, and then we're the judge of who we're like, I don't know, it feels like the humans are playing judge, and if let's say like there's some big scandal happening and people are like, well, I'm just reporting to the higher power, so I'm going to lie to all of America, which, happens.
Lauren, we need to get a conspiracy.
Conspiracy
masks and start saying some crazy stuff. Or
So
what?
we got a dream podcast, Lauren's conspiracy podcast.
Yeah, I love it. Okay.
Well, but a good point is that not all of us will be in the situation where we're protecting Jews from Nazi,
Right.
So if
police.
we say it's
But-
acceptable there, is it acceptable because someone else is deciding if it's
No,
acceptable? or
I
not?
think there are ways around that. I don't think it's saying that humans are deciding if it's correct or wrong, like correct or I don't think that's the issue because we're still having this higher standard
Yeah.
that we're going to, which is protecting human life. I
Yeah.
do think though there are
then what about
situations where
the
that
Ten
would be.
Commandments?
What about him?
Or like what about that's a different. Sorry, I took a trail and then I ended.
It's like take us on that journey with you.
But what you're saying is there are commands that say do not lie.
Right,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that seems like a very black and white thing.
Right.
I
Yeah.
would say that we could talk about the law and say how that and please I got it, man. We're getting into gray areas because there are gray areas
Yeah.
in life.
Enter.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's no black and white truth. Okay, what I'm saying is there are situations where the law does not. Even in scripture, there are times
Yeah.
when the law is not carried out the way it is because the law is actually meant to help people exercise wisdom. And we see moments where God himself does not enforce his law as like an act of mercy or things like that. Now, no. That does not mean God does not say, oh, what you did was a sin. And I'm not saying it's a sin, but there's like forgiveness in situations. So there are gray areas and smaller stakes areas where this is a lot harder to answer. Like,
Yeah.
Because lying,
Oh,
I mean, it hurts someone.
Yeah.
Always.
let's say someone's on their deathbed. They have a family member who you're trying to figure out like, should we tell them? Oh, there's this movie called The Farewell. This woman, this Chinese woman has cancer. The family is all asking, should we tell her that she has cancer so she knows she's dying? Risk her realizing that and then declining in health because of that realization, or which is the approach that the Chinese family takes versus the American Chinese family. Do we not tell her so that the family bears the burden and she can live her life happily until the end?
Wow.
You should watch that movie. It's an amazing movie and it has an ending that you wouldn't expect. But that question is it okay to lie to her in that situation or not? What are the values? And there are multiple values at play there that make it a really difficult question. And so there are situations like that where this question becomes a lot more relatable and a little bit more tricky. And I think a lot of
Interesting.
wisdom needs to be taken in those situations. But it's like, not that humans are deciding whether it's right or wrong, but it's deciding what in wisdom, what is the highest kind of good here. Not
Yeah.
that it's, this is a bigger discussion.
I wrote it down.
Yeah, that's a good one. We can get deeper
Yeah.
into it in another episode. I would say no. And I would say, I understand what you guys are saying. So, and we can talk more about it in a bigger podcast. Rahab's a great story to look at in the Bible, to talk through it. But I would say no. I would say kind of personally and experientially, I think there's ways that you can, say things that are true that's negating the consequences, right? So, Germans come to your door and they're like, do you have any Jews here? You're like, no, they're not, in my house. Maybe they're in your barn. They're not in my house, right?
The loophole.
So I think there's ways that you can use your words where it doesn't, sear the conscience or cause you to sin, and you're still able to preserve the life. So I'd take like the third road option and say you can say no and find ways to set yourself up so you continue to be in the truth and at the same time preserve and protect life.
Yeah. And this is a bigger, we'll end it here, but we'll end this question here. But even then, you're still being deceptive. You still are intentionally misleading and deceiving people. So that is an interesting kind of, throws a
Like loophole.
interesting kind of thing into the
Right.
loophole.
Somebody
thing.
asks you they say,
It's
do
like
you have
white
Ju-
lies.
Yeah, do you have Jews in your house? It's like, oh, if I would say they're in my house and I'd just say no,
They're not in
I'd
my house.
feel like lying, that I've crossed the line, my conscience. Right?
Yeah.
I would feel
And I
like
feel like most people watching this podcast wouldn't be in a situation like that. So maybe we more apply it to like daily life. Like,
so daily life,
And
those are
most
extreme.
of the time, yeah,
they're
it's not
very,
okay
very
to
extreme
lie.
example. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
daily life. Okay, your wife, she's dressed in a dress and she doesn't, or your husband's dressed in a thing, and he's
gosh.
like, "Do I
Yeah.
look good?" Go ahead, Zach. We're gonna start you off on this one. And she's wearing a dress, and she's like, how, "Do I look good? Do I look fat in this dress?" And maybe she doesn't look her best in that dress, Zach.
I have a relationship with my wife where we're comfortable and we know how to communicate things to each other. So
that's not flattering.
she knows that I love her very much and I love her physically. So it's I would know how to navigate that situation.
You said you would.
What?
You said.
You said what now? No,
Next question.
no, I would have a way if I was like, no, I don't think that looks good on you. I know how to communicate that without saying you're the problem.
Yeah.
Because that's
and that's
what people don't
exactly
know how
the
to
point I'm
communicate, you know?
saying. Like
Yeah.
you can answer it in a way where you can be like, hey, well, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite outfit you have, you know?
Yeah.
Where you're not answering the question that they have, but you're saying it in a way that's respectful and nice.
Yeah.
of them. All
Yeah.
right, that's a big question. We'll go back.
Yeah.
We'll circle back into
It's a good
that
question.
one.
Next hot take.
Okay, next hot take.
Two more. We got two more.
This is, I did not write these questions. So, two more. Should the floor be considered a giant shelf for things you don't want to put away?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, this is
No.
this is ridiculous. No.
When you
Lauren,
live
explain
with
you write this, Lauren?
ADHD,
Explain yourself, Lauren.
If you live
Explain
with
yourself.
two ADHD roommates and the floor and the shelf is also the shelf, everything's the shelf. I just wondered, you know?
What if the floor is the shelf? What's the floor?
Oh,
Ooh.
Floor section.
Next hot take.
Yeah, as soon as you compromise in one area, you're just compromising everywhere. What is the bathroom?
We're gonna enter into the
is the
conspiracy
toilet
theories
like,
again.
Is the toilet a
the
shelf?
toilet shelf? How about the shower floor?
Is any flat surface a shelf?
Wow, this is not a
Is
question
this
for
a shelf
this
or a
crowd.
table?
Yeah.
All right, next hot take.
All right, next hot take. I'm going to throw this one to Zach first. Will there be movies or other cultural things from this life in heaven? Books, movies, art, etc.
Interesting.
100% yes. That's my answer.
Wow.
The
confidence.
question is to what extent and which movies.
Will there be
Cultural
horror
things.
movies?
God's
and
not
arts.
dead will be in heaven.
This may be revealing something, but I kind of don't think God's not dead is going to be in heaven.
Oh, not the Robertson.
Wow, we have
I'll
no
write
more
that
room for
down.
hot take questions, comments. We're out.
Yeah, ask me questions about God's Not Dead, the God's Not Dead franchise.
With a disclaimer, all the opinions shared in this podcast are the
They're my
opinions
personal-
of personal
personal
opinions, not the
opinions.
church's opinion.
I'm not necessarily representing the church.
All
in this
personal opinions.
situation.
All personal
There's
opinions.
room for perspective.
We do not represent New Life right now at this point.
Aswan, I want you to throw it at the end, just a really like quickly worded.
Gotta like put in slow motion. I do think so. I think God is a God of beauty. God is a God of art, and a lot of that beauty and art is reflected. A lot of who God is reflected in art.
Yeah.
The question is, what kinds of movies will be in heaven?
Yeah.
I even think then my answer would make some certain people uncomfortable. For example, I think horror movies maybe they will be in heaven. Certain ones.
Whoa, so who's gonna be the actors though? Who's
Oh.
the filmmakers in heaven?
Well, the thing is, like, movies do depict people who aren't believers, and is it okay to have representations of those people in heaven? Maybe, probably. Maybe it'll be like that. Maybe it'll be like that software where you can filter out all the like cuss words.
I wanted to.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I wonder if we're asking a question or we're assuming a premise that's not even going to be a reality. Like,
Because that reminds me of The Good Place, the TV show.
yeah,
Yeah,
where they kind of play
yeah.
out.
You want to talk
what-
about
Yeah,
heaven?
like
Because
what
I
heaven
could
is.
defend it.
Well,
I could defend my
I'll be
take on
too
the hot
busy
take.
lying with the lamb and lion, so
yeah,
Not too busy.
I'm gonna be
my gold body.
you know,
Swimming in the air.
flying through the air like. No, I mean, it's kind of like Jesus. He's like, hey, you know, they challenge Jesus. Well, if a man's married and dies and his wife and all that, you know, so what's gonna happen? Is he married in heaven? Jesus is like, you don't even understand. There's not even be marriage in heaven. And so I wonder if we're like, hey, there's gonna be movies and books, and it's gonna be something so much better, greater, you know, that there won't necessarily be even a need for it. You're never even gonna miss it. There's probably gonna be some things on earth that you don't even care about.
So
That's definitely
Interesting.
potential. My take on heaven. And this is maybe another podcast.
Heaven podcast.
Heaven podcast.
Write it down.
My take on heaven is that it'll be a lot more like this world than we think, and way different, way better than this world than we think. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. There will be things that maybe I'm open to that. Maybe there won't be anything like this.
Yeah.
I think though that thinking of art and creativity and like even building buildings, like I think that is consistent with the new heavens and new earth that we see in scripture. And it's not the like angels floating in a cloud with harps,
Yeah.
spiritual. It'll be a physical place.
Yeah.
Where the spiritual realm and the physical realm become one, and that'll be a beautiful thing. And I think it's very possible. That we will have jobs, that we will, and it'll be out of joy. And so like, maybe Essa will be making some banger movies in heaven. And those could be really interesting.
Yeah.
And he would be glorifying the Lord, honoring the Lord, praising the Lord with
everything.
with those things, and with like actors. Maybe Abel, you'll finally be able to become an actor like you've always wanted.
Wow. I have?
I don't know. I was just assuming. Anyway, so that's my take on that. I do think there will be movies and books in heaven, and some from this life that will carry over.
I think there'll be healthy competition in heaven too, like sports and like
Play some ultimate frisbee.
yeah. I think there'll just be ultimate summer camp.
Hey, spoken like a true youth pastor.
yeah.
All right,
healthy
we have one
MMA.
more final submitted question. Is the world the worst it's ever been?
No.
I came up with this question. I've heard this done around a lot lately.
It depends on what
The
you
world is the
define
worst it's
the
ever been.
worst. What is you know what category are we talking about the worst? If we're talking about health, longevity of life, technology, it's the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
If we're talking about depravity,
Well, I don't know. I feel like my go-to answer is no, because I'm thinking like history, like slavery and like the way women were treated and the way people, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
all these different things that were happening that aren't still exist in some areas and
Mhm.
but it's not celebrated or it's not like normal mainstream culture like it was back in those times. So I think no, I think the world is definitely better in a more advanced civilized state. But maybe yeah, to the point of like depravity and like we're just as simple as we were 3,000 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 500 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. If you read Genesis, it doesn't take many chapters to
Yeah.
get into a place where God is like, he looks at the world that's supposed to be filled with beauty
Yeah.
and goodness, and he sees a world filled with violence, to the point where he lets the violence take place.
Yeah.
And kind of, we could talk about the flood, but he brings it to a state where it can be made new.
Yeah.
And
And because
Yeah.
God sees present, past, or past, present, future, it's almost like he's seen the violence and he's seen the worst of it already. Like he's like, I already know, like this is going to be the worst point of violence in this world's history. Like,
yeah,
and he's seeing it already. So that's kind of like,
I think we may be more aware of how bad the world is.
That's
We
true.
understand a little bit more the human psyche from a psychological perspective. We are more aware, just
The
digital
internet.
media, the internet. We see these things, so I think it feels like it's the worst it's ever been.
Yeah.
But I think the atrocities that we see have always been taking place. I mean, you could talk about technological advances that have advanced atrocities like the nuclear bomb and things like that. So there's stuff like that to take into account. But I
Yeah.
do think that the heart that created the nuclear bomb has always been
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing about the fall of humanity.
Interesting.
totally.
Yeah, I think we're more aware of the depravity. I don't think it's the worst it's ever been. I think in terms of human quality of life, it's probably one of the best times it's ever been. I mean, you have a toilet that flushes water,
Right.
a fridge, a roof over your head,
Yeah.
air conditioning,
Shelves
heat,
on the
floor.
floor.
You got a floor that's a
a
shelf.
floor that's a shelf. The
Table
fact
that's
that you
a
even
shelf.
have a
Gosh,
floor.
get lost.
But we're also not living in the when the Black Plague was there, Black Death. 50% of Europe dead.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
even the
that's
we
like-
can't comprehend
influenza.
that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, we have
Imagine
no
50%
context to that.
of America dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lifespan was so much
Like
shorter.
nothing you can do about it. We don't really understand what's happening, so.
This sounds really depressing, but it's actually hopeful because that means you don't have to despair. We don't want to end on that note. That you don't have to despair and think, oh, wow, this world is the worst it's ever been. God is still at work. There's still goodness and beauty around you. You just have to be intentional about being in touch with those things. So that's actually a hopeful kind of, we're ending on a hopeful note with that,
Yeah.
even though it's like a very depressing thing to kind
And
of
let me
address.
finish by saying this. It's been fun to do the podcast with you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for a year of entertainment, fun, laughs, deep questions, tears,
Conspiracy theories.
transparency, conspiracy theories, dreams being shared. And it's been a joy. It's been a lot of fun to do the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you guys all for your perseverance, your commitment to it, and for the impact that you've also been able to make. And I pray that we continue to be able to make, some great content in the future that would help you continue to grow and be challenged in your walk. So, wrapping up the episode, final episode of the first year. I think we should all just walk off.
Just get up.
See ya.
Yeah.